Hello, my name is Brian Friedland, and welcome to the second episode of Inside The GSC. Today I'm interviewing Union's Stephen Aldridge and Auburn Montgomery's Brian Henry. Stephen has been an SID at Union since 2000 and is also the South Region representative on the NCAA D2 site board. Brian started at Auburn Montgomery as the SID in August of this year and has been around the GSC since 2015. He is also the president of the CSC Division II Advisory Council and a member of the CSC Professional Development Committee. All right, so we're doing something a little bit different today for episode 2 of Inside the GSC. I'm proud to welcome in the Associate Director of Athletics over at Union University, Stephen Aldridge, and also the Sports Information Director at Auburn Montgomery, Brian Henry. Stephen and Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
It's going to be fun, Brian.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get into this one. So obviously you guys have both been SIDs for a while here in the Gulf South Conference. So what is an SID, and are there any other titles that this position is known by?
I guess I'll go first. Sports information directors can be called athletic communicators, strategic communicators, athletic public relations, media relations, digital media relations. It's just kind of a full gamut of what you want. We do everything from writing press releases, keeping stats at games, video production, social media, graphic design, event managers, stats coordinators. Sometimes they're coaches. We touch a lot of parts of an athletic department as an SID.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of moving parts with the athletic event, and it kind of depends on the school too. There are different job descriptions at different schools depending on what staff they have, who's already in place, things like that when SIDs are hired. But yeah, they do cover a lot of different areas, and you have to be flexible, be adjustable. When things happen all at the same time, you have to be a good communicator, not just athletically for your events, but a good communicator with each other, with your staff, just to make sure things get covered.
Gotcha. That's interesting. And then so now we'll dive into a little bit of your background on how you got your start in this industry. So what made you guys want to work in sports, and specifically why did you want to work in college sports?
I'll go first on this one, I guess. In high school, I played basketball and baseball, so I grew up loving sports. My dad taught mathematics at our high school. But he did a lot of support for our athletics. He drove the bus for all of our sports teams. He kept the scorebook for all of our teams. So even at a young age, I was riding the team bus. I'm in elementary school, the coolest kid at campus, riding the team bus to all these basketball events and different things. So I've been around that kind of thing all my life. Didn't know what a sports information director was. Had never really heard of one. And then graduated, went to Union. And I was like, hey, I wonder if their baseball coach needs any help doing stats. Sure enough, he did. So I was hired on as our manager, laundry boy, statistician at Union, and did that while I was in school to help pay some bills. And began working for our sports information director at the time, Julie Powell. She was our first sports information director at Union full time. So I worked for her, got introduced to the position, and was like, man, this is great. Changed my major to sports management, graduated. Worked in minor league baseball when this position at Union opened up in 2000. I took it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I sort of grew up around it. My father worked in athletics, and so, like Stephen, I was able to go on trips and be around the athletes and the teams, and those became my heroes growing up. That was just kind of what all I knew, and so I went to college. Was a PR major. Freshman year, we started working in the SID office, so I was able to get going right away and get exposed and work to different sporting events, and so that was just kind of the natural progression in my career path.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's always interesting being able to hear these different stories because not everybody's path up the mountain is always the same. So that's awesome to hear from both of you. And then so for Brian specifically, so you've worked in a number of different roles across Division I and Division II sports. Are there any takeaways that you had from that you've been able to apply now that you're an SID over at Auburn Montgomery?
I mean, it just every school is different. Every school, there are large schools, public schools, small schools, private schools. At the end of the day, our jobs exist because there are athletics here and there are student athletes. So that's kind of the thing that I try to tell myself is how can I impact the student athlete experience when I come to work. And so that's kind of the same thing that's driven me at Division I schools that I've worked at and at Division II schools. And so it doesn't matter if some people are going pro in sports and some are just going off into to be a medical doctor or whatever. They're all trying to be the best athlete they can be and to help their teams win. And so we're here to kind of be that that megaphone for the program and be able to see how can we promote them, how can we tell their story, things like that. And while it changes the different avenues you may take to get there, the end result is you're still trying to promote these teams and these student athletes.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And then for Steven, so obviously you touched on it when you were going over your background, but you've been at Union for over 20 years, and not even including when you were going to school there. So have you noticed any changes in college sport, like any big changes in college sports in that time?
Just thinking back, I mean, when I first started in 2000, or even as a student worker in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, the internet was just coming along. People had websites, but basically you put a schedule on there and a roster, and you didn't touch it again until the next season when you put a new schedule and a new roster on there. So that was started when I first started as SID in 2000. We were still using the fax machine. We were still faxing in our Player of the Week nominations, faxing in. If your team wanted to be ranked, you had to fill out a form and then fax to all 30 raters your form and your schedule and results. So, there's obviously the technology changes. Social media has come in and just changed so many things, but also created some new opportunities that, sometimes smaller schools couldn't get in front of a lot of people until social media came along. So that's really created a lot of opportunities for smaller schools. And it's been awesome to see the fact that you can actually become your own media. You don't need a TV station or a newspaper or whatever. You love to have those, obviously, but you can kind of become your own media yourself with your website and social media. So just seeing the change that has brought. Of course, the changes in recently with NILs and just the opportunities that student athletes have, that touches down in our level a little bit. It's not obviously as big as it is in the major D1s, but it does touch it and it brings it in. So just a whole different aspect. I joke around, and obviously this was a one-time thing. This is not a normal thing, but I had a student athlete come to me a year or so ago and asked me if I was going to take photos at a ball game. And I said, I think my photographer's going to be there tonight. Yeah, I think I've got them scheduled. They said, okay, I just need to know if I need to go get a haircut or not. And so that kind of thought process, and again, that's a one-time thing, and they were kind of joking a little bit, but that kind of thought process with how much social media, how much video is involved and photos are involved, and I mean, you're instantly out there in front of the world. And so some people think about things like that, and so it's just kind of funny. And no, I did not tell the coach they told me that, because I'm pretty sure I know that conversation would have gone. But it's just a funny situation. So just the way people think about things. And so there have been a lot of changes in my 25 years for sure.
Yeah, no, it's crazy seeing how much college sports has evolved just even 20 years ago. And then just getting into a little bit more of the thick of things. All of us are working in sports currently, and there are a lot of limited no matter how many teams and colleges are out there, there are always limited spots, and there are always young professionals who are trying to find their niche, find their way into the industry. For young professionals, do you have, and this is for both of you, do you guys have advice for how to differentiate yourself, or what are some practices that you noticed that worked for trying to just break through into this industry that can be just so competitive?
I mean, when I talk to students or even GA candidates, I just try to tell them, don't be afraid to take chances. I mean, try anything. I had a student at one place that I worked. He was afraid to take a GA or internship job after he graduated because it was like 5 hours from home. And I said, well, some people are just afraid to move or whatever. And I said, you've got to take that chance. You can go there, at least try to stick it out for a year. If you don't like it and you want to come home, that's fine. But at least you had that opportunity and you took that chance. On kind of a smaller scale, like I had a student come to me a couple of weeks ago that wanted to do some work for us in our office. And he's a graphic design major and wanted to design some social media things. And I said, that's fine. We can work on that. But also, in addition to doing that, I really need somebody to help design some graphics for our video board. It wasn't something he had ever done before. He had never really done motion graphics, but he took it on and wasn't afraid to give it a shot. And so, I mean, that's the one thing is you can try just about anything in an athletic department. If you don't love it, you can do something else. You don't have to be married to it right away. So that's just kind of one thing that I try to tell people is to be open to new challenges and new things to do.
That's exactly right. I mean, you want to take opportunities of graduate assistantships, internships, volunteer times. If you get a chance to work a tournament, because there's always help, national tournaments, regional tournaments, find somebody that's hosting a tournament and volunteer your help for that tournament. Put your work out there in front of a bunch of folks, and a good way to get spotted that way. And so just not being afraid to do things like that, to take those chances, to put yourself out there, but find things, what's going on. If you're into digital media, if you're doing that, find something that people need and make yourself marketable. Obviously this with all the technology and social media, things change so rapidly now, but making yourself marketable. If you go in obviously and say, I'm good on a typewriter, you're not going to get a lot of looks, but make yourself marketable, put yourself out there, volunteer for those opportunities to get your work in front of somebody. And again, don't be afraid to take that chance, like Brian said.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of people struggle with just being able to take things are just a leap of faith sometimes, and you just have to do it instead of overthinking it. So that makes a lot of sense. And then, so as you guys are breaking through the industry, did you ever have any mentors? And if so, did you have any mentors that gave you any lessons that you've been able to apply to what you're doing now?
I mean, for me, growing up around the business, seeing my father be an SID, that kind of was the no-brainer for me, was to pick his brain. We still talk 5, 6, 7 times a week. And even though he's been retired for 20 years, he can still give me advice on things that I can apply to today's world of ever-evolving media and things like that, and communications. When I was in college, I had a couple of bosses my first 2 years of college that sort of gave me free reign. I actually did a lot of website building in 2000, 2001 when I was in college. And those bosses, they had a faith in me. They kind of let me do what I wanted to try to make their first and second websites be progressive. And so they gave me the opportunity to get started in the business. And then I had a supervisor at UMass who really kind of helped me learn more about thinking of things at like a 10,000 foot level. You're so just grounded and tunnel visioned into your sport and that season at the time. And he really kind of helped me develop some skills to be able to see things at a bigger level and understand how to stretch yourself and make yourself be more available to a larger group of people. And as I've gotten older, colleagues from other schools around the country and in the GSC, we bounce ideas off each other, and you've got your small network that you talk to on a regular basis and share ideas with. And so that's just kind of the way that I've sort of developed my network and lessons that I've learned from people as we move on in this profession.
Yeah, you think back, I mentioned my father. He was a high school math teacher, but did a lot of stuff, extracurricular stuff to help out. So he was always in a role of doing as much as he could to help out. And so I think back to that. He taught a lot of things about hard work and everything. And the whole saying that he didn't make this up, but he always pushed this to me and my brother, that anything worth doing right, or anything worth doing, is worth doing right the first time. And just the ability to work hard and to know that that's something you can control. So I owe a lot to him, and just like that. And again, he passed away when I was 16 years old, but I still have those memories of him giving those speeches to me, and just understand, like, look, you can't control a lot of things, but you can control your attitude. You can control how you work, so how hard you work. So those things, is what he's taught me. And then, of course, you get into business, like Brian said. You have people in the business. I know when I first was named SID, we were in the NAIA, and we were in the conference with current GSC team, Lee University, and Mr. George Starr was the SID there. He was an old newspaper guy, but he was a guy that I really called a lot and said, "Hey, how do you do this?" Or how should I handle this? Or what does this mean? Kind of thing. So, but it worked great. People like that you're able to call and, again, bounce ideas off of, and just being able to talk to people. And like I said, the first full-time SID at Union was Julie, and she did it for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then I took her place as she went to full-time teaching. But she was somebody that I would say, look, is this how we did this? And there's still things in my office now, 25 years later, that I still use that Julie started. So when you find something that works, you find something that does that's being done well, you continue it, and you try to add to it, add to it, add to it. So there's been so many people. I don't want to start naming too many names. You'll leave somebody out. But just being able to talk to somebody and bounce ideas off of them. But it all starts with my family, my mom and dad, just giving me the ability to go do this, to take a chance on something. Again, I'd never heard of the sports information profession until I got to Union as a student, and just knowing that this was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to try it. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a service to the athletes and to the coaches and to the school, and this is a great way to do that. And it's worked out so far, hopefully.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And then obviously you guys both touched on it a little bit, like this segment of the industry is a fairly people business, and you're constantly interacting with a lot of different people who have differing beliefs. So is there a specific leadership style you have used to guide people within your own departments, and how has that varied when dealing with coaches, student athletes, and others?
I guess I'll go.
Go ahead.
I think working with coaches specifically takes time to kind of get a feel for one another and what styles may work with working with them. With student athletes, they're all pretty much just kind of green and not really knowing what your job is. So you can kind of explain to them what you're trying to do, and they're usually pretty open to helping out or doing that interview or working on a game as a student worker or things like that. I think the leadership style is whatever you feel may work best in that situation. I try to give my assistants and my students and GAs a lot of freedom with minimal guidance. And then if throughout a project we see that questions come up, I'll offer some more input. But at the same time, they're going to figure it out. They didn't get to this point just by being lucky. And so, I just try to let them kind of develop their way of doing things. And as long as the end result is what we need, then that's the best process for me usually.
Yeah, I like to try to, like you said, coaches are different. Every coach they handle different things differently. Some coaches are, they're very humble. They don't really want to be in front of a microphone. They want to get everything to their kids, to their players. And then some are not. Some love the spotlight, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that too. But again, you have to handle different situations differently. Just trying to lead by example, whether it be through student workers or with athletes. If they know that you're working hard, that you're trying, that you show up every day, and you have their best interest in mind, it just makes those opportunities a lot more. That those things go a lot more smoothly when you're trying to work through situations or problems. If they know that you've got their best interest in mind, that you're willing to work, that you're there every day, and they see you doing your job. It's not one of those things where I sit back in a high office and point my finger and say, go do this, go do that. We're kind of all working together. There's some leadership there, obviously. There's some decisions that have to be made. But we're all working together, and we're trying to push each other a little further. And like I said, been doing it 25 years, and things change. And the older I get, the less I like change. And once I figure something out, I don't want it to change. But then a computer will update. Now I've got to learn a whole new system. So I learn a lot from my student workers. And I tell people, I hire people all the time that are smarter than I am, because I have to lean on them for things. Okay, show us how we can do this better. And they're showing me all these shortcuts and different things like that. And so they're really making our process a lot more streamlined, because they know an easier or better way to do it than my old antiquated ways maybe. So being willing to learn from others, but still obviously be in that leadership position where you are walking along beside them and helping push them along as well as kind of bringing everybody along at the same time.
Okay, that's interesting. And then so now, obviously this field can be very intensive at times, and it's really important to maintain a healthy work-life balance, especially if you have families and other commitments outside of sports. So how do you guys maintain a healthy work-life balance in this field, and are there any hobbies you picked up to help decompress after a long day?
Man, I appreciate my family. My wife and my 2 kids, they understand what my profession is, and they understand that we might celebrate birthdays a day early or a day late, things like that. So they understand my hours, they understand the things that happen. So I really appreciate them and what they do. And so just being able to come home to them is awesome. And they come home and they're very supportive. There's not why were you at a ball game again? You've had 3 ball games this week. You're never home. They don't treat me that way. They don't say those things. So being able to come home to an environment where they understand, they appreciate, and so that's always fun there. I love going home to my family, but also just being very active in my church, just doing things there. I love to fish, love anything outdoors pretty much, and so it's great. My kids have picked up hobbies. I've got a freshman in college, and I've got a junior in high school, and just being able to go do things with them, things that they enjoy, and being able to hang out with them, but just making sure you take advantage of those. Because I told somebody just the other day, I was like, this profession, like a lot of professions, there's always something to do. You can always stay another hour at the office. You can always stay a little bit later. You've always got something to do. But when you do have time off, when it is time to go home and do something, and just get away from the office and take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I was going to just say, the understanding family aspect. My kids didn't choose to grow up in a family around sports, but they've been accepting of it and they've enjoyed it, especially obviously when they were younger. My wife would bring them to games, and I would get to see them and kind of share that moment with them. And then as they got into high school and college age, they had their own events and stuff. And so my priorities shifted. If I could find a way to have an assistant or a GA look over an event for me, so that I could go to one of their sporting events. I've probably been to every swimming pool for my son within a 400-mile radius of Pensacola, and every performing arts center for my daughter at dance competitions. And so you just find a way to make it work. Obviously, the internet and being able to connect wirelessly to things, it allows you to still do your job, even if you are at those events, and trying to balance that work-life balance. That's where it gets tricky, is the number of times that maybe my wife was driving on a road trip that I was doing work in the passenger seat and things like that. You find a way to get things done, and hopefully at the end of the day you've done enough to make your family proud and done enough to make your coaches and administrators happy. But you can't always do that. And so sometimes you have to try to let them know what you're doing or why you're doing it, and hopefully they understand what's going on. If they don't, that's disappointing. But just having that family environment around you, and I enjoy playing golf. That's kind of my release and my outlet. I don't get to as much as I want to, but hopefully that can change soon. And I can play some more golf.
That's a sport I've always wanted to get into, but just haven't been able to yet. But at some point I will. So switching gears a little bit, we touched on at the beginning of this what an SID is exactly, but take me through an average day-to-day for an SID, and how does this day-to-day change if it's a game day? So if it's volleyball or golf or whatever sport there is, how does that get impacted, that average day-to-day?
How long do you have? I mean, it just depends on the season and what's happening that week.
Right.
I mean, I try to have a long range calendar that so that I can see what's going on in the future, and then be able to see those deadlines. And if I don't think I'm going to hit a deadline, I'm going to delegate that to a coworker. And so that's kind of the way I go into a day. I'll try to look at my calendar before I leave work the day before, and just see, hey, what kind of meetings do I have tomorrow? Are there any deadlines for nominations coming up? Things like that. Just trying to stay on top of the number of things that we're going to get, especially when we hit crossover season like we are in now, where you've got your 4 or 5 fall sports and your 2 to 6 winter sports, depending on what school you're at. You've got a lot of people asking a lot of your department. And so you've just got to be able to plan those things out and be able to explain to them, hey, this is how I'm going to try to get this done. I appreciate your help in some of these things. If not, we'll find some other people that can help out.
Yeah, you're right. Planning is key in your day, your week, your month. And like Brian said, having a view of way out in front of you, just trying to head off as many problems as you can, but plan your day out. He has a list on his wall behind him there. I have a list in my office, and you have to have that because there's so many moving parts. There's so many different things going on a game day. So I mean, you start whether you have to schedule people. Obviously, that takes place more than just that day of, but just making sure people are in place, the equipment is working, the equipment is where it needs to be. When you have multiple events going on, sometimes you've got your equipment spread out several different places. Does this adapter, making sure your right adapters go with the right computers, things like that. So just being prepared, being planned out, making obviously just the promotion of the event, the recaps of the event. Again, all those things happen on a game day. When the horn sounds, everybody leaves and everybody goes home, except the sports information director. They still have some stuff to do. They have to update, to report, to communicate with other SIDs, maybe of the teams are playing. So there's a lot of things that go on even after the fact. It's not just you show up at a 7 o'clock start and you leave when the horn sounds. You show up several hours early, again, making sure everything's working. I tell my GAs and stuff, it's like I want to test everything out early, and I want to make sure it's working plenty of time before the game. That way, if there's a problem, we have time to fix it. But also, during that time right before the game is usually when everybody else's problems start arising who maybe haven't planned very well. And so we usually get called in to help fix those problems. So, if we can have our stuff in order, our stuff is ready to go, then we're able to help others and make sure other things are working right. So, again, like Brian said, just planning everything out, looking at the big picture, and trying to make sure you can accomplish as many things as possible, making sure you're doing the job that you're expected to do.
Yeah, earlier you asked what some of our jobs were. Emergency IT person.
Yes.
That comes up a lot too. Or scoreboard repair.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. I mean, you guys wear many different hats, clearly, so that makes you very versatile and adaptable to whatever comes up. And then, so just changing pace here a little bit. So both of you have been involved with college sports communicators and D2 CIDA. And I just wanted to ask, why was it important to both of you to get involved with these organizations, and what does it mean to you to be a part of them?
I mean, it's just kind of a personal choice that I wanted to be a part of some of these different committees. It took me probably like 7 or 8, 10 years in my career to really kind of get to a point where I felt like, okay, I've got time to devote to being on an academic All-America committee, or I've got time to try to be on a programming committee for the convention and things like that. And so I had been involved in some of those things on kind of a regional level, and hadn't really thought about how can I get involved more nationally or things like that. And so, I mean, I actually was talking to Eric Opperman, who used to work at Christian Brothers, and he was a region representative in D2 CIDA, and he was going to let his term expire, and he said, you should look into it and see if it's something that you're interested in. And so I did, and I was voted in by other South Region voters, and served 3, 4 years as a region representative, and decided, I enjoy this. I like the direction that this organization is going, and decided to run for a national board spot with D2 SIDA. And so I did 3 years as a board member there, as a second and first vice president, and then through the way the rotations happened, I'm now the president for the next 2 years, and so just trying to find ways to promote our organizations and promote our schools and our departments. I had a coworker one time that, like you asked before, are there differences between Division I and Division II? And it's not really a difference. It's just how you're perceived. And I had a colleague once tell me, well, if I leave a Division I school and go to a Division II school, I'm never going to get back to a Division I school. And I was so young at the time that I kind of thought, well, yeah, maybe that's something that bothers me. And as I worked through my career, it doesn't bother. I mean, every school is different. Every department is different. Every level has its different challenges. And being a proactive and positive member of Division II is something that I enjoy. We've got in college sports communicators, we've got 211 schools at the D2 level that are members, 13 conference offices, and through their various membership programs, there's 554 total members right now that are all able to contribute to contests. They can participate in webinars and professional development things throughout the year. And we're trying to get people better at their jobs and get them more marketable in their departments and in their areas of expertise. So yeah, it's a way that I can impact as many people and make it a fun environment and a good profession to be in. I think we all get in this because we like sports, and it's a way to promote things. I mean, there's 15, 16 committees among college sports communicators, and whether it's young professionals or new media or professional development or academic All-America, there's different ways you can get involved. There's a mentor program. You can be a mentor or a mentee. It's just there's a lot of opportunity to get involved and to kind of grow your own network and your own professional development.
A lot of the same things. Again, growing up in a family that really emphasized service and being involved in other things. Again, my dad, again, I keep going back to my dad, my family, but not just a math teacher. He was a Sunday school teacher. He was our church treasurer. He was a volunteer fireman. He was like 3 or 4 club sponsorships at our school. He was a bus driver for athletics. He was an alderman for our local town. So somebody that didn't use the excuse of I'm too busy. He always wanted to help somebody. If they called and asked his help, if he was physically able, he was probably going to say yes. And so he was one of those people. And so I wanted to be that's just the way I was. That's what was shown to me as a young person. And so I want to be involved. And so it's just exciting to be able to do that. Like Brian said, you have an opportunity to get on a board, and you're fortunate enough for folks to vote you in. And the opportunities to be able to serve is outstanding. To be able to give people opportunities to give them avenues where they can promote their student athletes in their colleges even more maybe than they could by themselves. It also creates if you got good service groups like that, people that have the big picture in mind. Brian talked about the membership. You have a lot of people speaking for you. You have a bigger voice, and so sometimes things get overlooked. Sometimes SIDs might get overlooked in the grand scheme of things as far as the hierarchy of an athletic department. Well, these groups do a great job of making sure the SID's voice is heard, whether they be the college sports communicators or the D2 SIDA. It's just one of those things where they have the best interest of the SIDs in mind, and they want to make sure they're equipped, make sure they're heard, make sure they have opportunities to do their job. Something, again, this was not totally me, but I was fortunate enough to be on the NAI side of board when we were members of the NAI. And something we noticed in that group, of course, a lot of small schools, there were very few head SIDs. It was the minority. A lot of schools had coaches /SIDs or part-time SIDs. And so we started this 2-year campaign where we promoted kind of a financial value of sports information directors through media, through ad space in newspapers, just kind of the comparable things that you're getting. And we were fortunate enough, our group was fortunate enough to be able to speak at the NAI National Convention in front of athletic directors and presidents. So that's what those groups can do. Those groups can really, really help SIDs that are maybe being overlooked. We can show you how to get more attention, how to promote yourself, how to show your value on your own campus, and also be able to take what you have and then promote your athletes even better. So that's just, I really like the groups. I like what they stand for. I like what they do. I like the fact they include so many different people, and it's fun. I enjoy doing it. Like Brian said, I really enjoy being on those boards and love serving as region chairs for voting committees or all region committees or all America committees. Those are fun things for me.
Yeah, it definitely seems like two great organizations to be a part of. And then just to round this out, always like to end these with a couple fun questions. So I'll start off with, what is a memorable sporting event that you have gotten to cover throughout your career?
We've had a couple of national championship teams. Those are always fun. Those are the easy answers. I will say this. We actually talked about this the other day. We had a women's basketball team that played at Knoxville, played UT. Pat Summitt was still coaching at the time, so it was an exhibition game. And this player was an All-American for us. She's coaching the local high school here now. But she got in a bind, and she's a right-hander, outstanding three-point shooter. But she somehow, off balance, makes a left-handed three-pointer against Tennessee in Thompson-Boling Arena. And just to see the look on Pat Summitt's face, and those are just memories like that. That was kind of neat. But there's been a lot. There's been a lot of things that I feel blessed to be able to cover. So
that's awesome. And then what about you, Brian?
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be around a few national championship winning teams, and so obviously that's exciting because you kind of knew what challenges that team went through to overcome and to succeed at that level. Even I've been able to work some national championships in different sports. I've been swimming and diving championships. I've been in a few tennis championships. And it's fun even if you don't have a team there, the energy surrounding that atmosphere, each time is different. But I mean, I still, in any NCAA basketball tournament, there is an energy in arenas that is not in other places or even in the arenas during the regular season. The postseason experience is just ratcheted up when you've got both bands and spirit squads there, and a few thousand people they're filling an arena, and you smell the popcorn and the squeak of the sneakers. It gets you going, knowing that in 2-3 days somebody's going to hoist a wooden trophy with some gold on it. And I mean, that's what everybody's trying to do. I'm a huge golfer. I mean, I know I mentioned it before, but my favorite week of any athletic season is the NCAA golf championships. I geek out over that. Seeing 20 teams and a handful of individuals compete on a world-class golf course is just my ultimate sport experience. I'd like to go to the Masters. I've never been. And so that's probably my professional sport that I'd like to go see sometime. But yeah, I mean, just seeing the postseason experience and seeing athletes win championships and the dog piles on the green or the storming of the courts and stuff like that. It's if that doesn't get you excited, then you probably need to go somewhere else.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then for this next question, you're going to change it up a little on you guys. You're actually going to answer for the other person. So you've seen lots of baseball games or any sporting event for that matter, but in baseball, there's always a walk-up song. So if you had to pick a walk-up song for the other person, what would you choose?
I think with Brian, because I always talk to him, we call a lot. And most of the time, like you mentioned a while ago, he's on the road somewhere to a swimming thing or to a dance class, or he's with his kids. He's on the road. It's like if I talk to him, he's on the road. Like I never catch him in his office. And so I would think "Life Is a Highway." That's the song I picked for him. I think Rascal Flatts was the latest group to do it, but several people have done it, I guess. But I would pick Life is a Highway because he's always on the road when I call him.
Yeah, see, I'm going with Steven's baseball background. I mean, he's the closer on my team, and so I'm gonna go for some Narco by Timmy Trumpet. That's gonna be what he walks out of the bullpen like Edwin Diaz do that.
Yes.
I know he's Steven's a big George Strait fan. I don't know how many people know that, but maybe some the Fireman or Amarillo by Morning or something like that for him if he really wanted to choose his own song.
Okay,
Yeah, those are good.
Steven, what do we think of that?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, Amarillo is a classic. So yeah, that would be. Not sure how people get pumped up to that, but it probably worked for me, I guess.
And then Brian, are you good with Life is a Highway?
I can make it work. That's fine.
Got it. That's awesome. And then also, we'll wrap this up with this question, but since we're doing this around Thanksgiving, would love to know, what is the dream, if you're going to a dream Thanksgiving dinner, what would be the best plate of food you could assemble?
Wow.
I've always liked, I mean, I'm a chicken fingers guy. So, I mean, yes, we'll eat turkey at my house on Thanksgiving. But growing up, we always had, we would do celery and put peanut butter in it. And then the deviled eggs, things like that. The pies, we always had a lot of pies at I think it was just because nobody could agree on a flavor. So we would have, I like cherry pie. I think I know my dad liked key lime. My mom was a pumpkin person. My brother, he's 6'5". He's a giant of a human. He eats lots of any kind of flavor pie. So yeah, those are kind of the things that we would eat.
Yeah, I love a Thanksgiving meal, the ham, the turkey, it all. I love the different ways. Last several years, we smoke our turkey here on our grill, and that's turned out really, really well. So we love doing that. But I'm a huge turkey and dressing fan. Love that. Love the green bean casseroles, the peas, all the potatoes and stuff that go with it. I'm kind of I love the vegetables, the meat, potatoes kind of thing. That's kind of what pretty much any meal that's going to have meat, potatoes kind of thing is going to be some of my favorites. But that's great. But we love pies. My favorite would be the chocolate pie, and I do like the meringue. I love it, just the golden brown meringue. So I love chocolate pie, I love pecan pie, but that'd be my favorites. That'd be my ideal meal right there.
That's awesome.
Steven, can you save me a place at your table, and I'll be on the road, and I'll drive up there, and I'll eat
You're
some
welcome.
of your smoked turkey.
You're welcome anytime.
That's awesome. Well, Steven and Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved getting to hear more about the behind the scenes of college athletics, learning about what an SID does, all that good stuff. So thank you again so much for joining me today.
And thank you all for having us.
you.
It's been an honor.
To everyone else, I hope you enjoyed our interview today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever content can be found. Stay tuned for what we have in store next time on Inside the GSC.